Cairo to Abuja, London to Kigali. The world is shifting fast. Elections are shaping destinies, wars are redrawing borders, economies are rising and falling, and global alliances are being tested like never before. But what does it all mean for you?
With a new administration and a new president in the White House trying to put an end to the war.
I didn't know the historical context, what the state of Israel means for them.
Join the fearless Ireti Bakare-Yusuf on Borderlines every Friday at 4 p.m. on Nigeria Info 99.3. As she dissects the biggest global events and their impact on world peace.
Those who are not familiar with Israel or the war itself would not know much about the group. Breaking the silence.
No spin, no propaganda, just deep insights and fearless conversations on the geopolitics shaping our world.
People who will call and start telling you about the Bible prophecy about America and everything. See, America is not in the Bible. There's some people who just share the ideology of, yes, we and these people, we are equal, but they can't speak up.
Borderlines on Nigeria Info every Friday at 4 p.m. The world is changing. Don't just watch, understand it. Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Good afternoon, Lagos, Nigeria, the diaspora, England, UK, Palestine, Israel, Europe, wherever you're listening to us from. Welcome to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. Today, we're staying in Africa, just a little bit outside of Nigeria. You all know what happened last Sunday. Elements of Benin's armed forces launched a bold attempt to seize power. Rebel soldiers, led by Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigre, stormed the state broadcaster, and they announced the removal of President Patrice Talon. They declared all state institutions dissolved. Yes, there was a coup d'etat, an attempted coup. What happened? Immediately, not only did it create crazy headlines, it sparked violent clashes in Cotonou. And then we heard about what Nigeria did. Indeed, there's still the conversation going on because we now know Minister Yusuf Tuga. Have you listened to our interview with him last week? Or Minister Yusuf Tuga has since come out to say those Nigerian armies that were army personnel or soldiers, not army, Air Force, that they were detained in Burkina Faso, they're still there. They are yet to be released. That's what, about the sixth coup attempts, although most of them, I think like 4 or so, have actually been successful. Right? 2, possibly 1 has not been successful. We have to talk about the failed coup in Benin and indeed what is happening with democracy in West Africa. Because as many would say, analysts will tell you, there appears to be a new wave of coups in West Africa. Where is ECOWAS in all of this? Indeed, where is the AU? What exactly are they doing? And how are they helping? I have with me the person that will help us understand. His name is Dr. Wole Ojewale. Did I get it right, sir?
Thank you so much, Ojewale.
Ojewale, thank you. I beg your pardon. Welcome to Borderlines and thank you for joining us. You heard my intro. Let's start with, Pascal Tigre. Most people don't seem to know much about him. I remember all the analysts that were talking on all the international stations, they didn't seem to know much about him. Who is he? And how was he able to actually, albeit it was foiled, but how was he able to actually put this coup together to the point where they actually take over the state broadcast in the first place?
Well, thank you so much for having me once again. I think that is the nature of coup, even historically, in countries like maybe Nigeria, Ghana, and some other African countries where they've had military rule in the past 5 to 6 decades. in 1966 in Nigeria, they were young officers, perhaps maybe in their 30s. Nobody knew so much of those names until they probably get on the scene. And everywhere, particularly the young fellow that is a Burkina Faso now too, grows out of the shadow. But one thing that most military coupists have in common is that they are usually individuals, particularly those leaders of the coup, people who have been have had their ears on the ground in terms of strategies, in terms of intelligence. And we saw a resurgence in the recent time that, in fact, coupist leaders of those coup were emerging from elite formations of the armies in those countries, to the point that I know that one congressman in the US complained that the people we are training are the ones that are actually leading coup in West Africa now. So the military leader in Guinea, Conakry, was trained, I think, by America. The fellow in Nigeria was also trained by elite forces in Western countries, maybe Europe, all over the places. So we're having the finest who have been exposed to power, seizing the reign of leadership. And this fellow, what I've read about him, I think he's around 38 years based on what I saw in the reports. And they are usually embedded in such a way that they know look at the fellow in Gabon, for instance. He has been the ADC for the former president for many years. They are familiar with the palace and the presidency, and they know where the skeletons are buried. But as probably we unpack in the course of this program, I think he tried his luck in Benin, and I'm excited that it didn't work out.
Why?
Yes, because I'll probably be on your program now castigating ECOWAS, talking about what they've done that was not right.
Please go ahead.
I won't do that because I'm happy with the outcome now. But
Right.
with big respect to my probably, what the conversation will look like now is better. Imagine everybody will be all over the places. ECOWAS is a failed bloc. I mean, you know what people will talk about. Because ECOWAS had in the toolkit different tools that they could use. They've tried diplomacy in Mali, it didn't work. They've tried diplomacy in Burkina Faso, it didn't work. They've tried diplomacy in Niger, it didn't work. And then this time around, they mounted an interventionist posture, and it worked. So I think at least most Nigerians are listening to these, and I know that Nigeria, the info is popular in the country, even among the diaspora. What happened is like the popular cliche in Southwest in the recent time, which is "Wole laughing, Wole takes madness to madness." So I think that is what happened. No matter what people want to say, democracy has been preserved, at least for now, in Benin.
But here's the thing. You said when we look at the other coups that were successful, yes, indeed, they didn't intervene. They tried diplomacy. But we have so-called democratically elected leaders who become and they morph into democratically elected dictators. Some of whom are, there used to be a show in the UK called Waiting for God, right? A lot of them are waiting for God, so to speak, because that's what they call people who are in there, septuagenarians, etc., etc. But yet ECOWAS, the same ECOWAS who mounted an intervention this time, have never done anything at all to those leaders. So why then should Africans, young West Africans, be celebrating this current intervention?
Yes, I think it's a very discomfiting truth in the sense that yes, people look at the civilian administrators and felt like some of them are even morphing into what I would describe as autocrats, even though they were voted as Democrats. We saw how Alpha Conde in Guinea-Conakry started subverting the constitutional process. We saw that recently, an attempt in Senegal, which I will, in the course of this program, project as a shining example about how people should resist authoritarian tendencies. And we also saw Ouattara sworn in recently for his 4th time, I think. And in those instances that I've mentioned, there were attempts to change the constitution. ECOWAS do possess a protocol on good governance and democracy, which they basically state that 6 months to election, no president, no incumbent should change the constitution, particularly as it relates to term limits. I think what is happening is that the ECOWAS head of state is also a trade union in which people can't really talk to one another courageously, challenge these tendencies of authoritarian drift that we've seen when Democrats, people who are elected democratically, like you mentioned, get into power and start behaving as autocrats and entrench themselves indeed as autocrats. So they've not been able to talk to one another. It took President Jonathan to reveal to us that what happened in Guinea-Bissau was a ceremonial coup. And much more than that is the fact that even beyond that, don't forget that Embalo Cisse handed over as the ECOWAS chair to the president of Nigeria.
Indeed.
It's amazing that people who subscribe or claim to subscribe to democratic ideas at that level will have embarked on the misadventure that Embalo Cisse had embarked upon in Guinea-Bissau by proscribing the parliament about a year ago or so. And then when he could not get back through the ballot, then he called in his chief of staff and handed over to a military government. The guy is hibernating, I think, in Equatorial Guinea now. So we see this trend in which head of states are just tolerating one another, their excesses, and then they couldn't really do anything. What happened is that 2 things, really. One, when subversion happens, people feel like, okay, if we could not get rid of him through the ballot, through the transparent, through the electoral process, we're happy that some folks somewhere emerge from the blues and get him out through the barrel of gun. It's an anomaly of some sort, but it's a short-lived excitement, because subsequently what we see is that as we have seen in Nigeria, and I do believe historically, based on what I've read, I'm not sure whether the present coupists are sophisticated as a generation of IBB. So if those people, after spending long time in government, people really press back and say, I step aside, then whatever this present crop of coup leaders in West Africa are enjoying, it's a very short-term honeymoon. People are going to push back at some point, but the challenge is that it comes at a cost. Yes, young Nigerian, young Burkinabe, Malian celebrated when those guys took over the reign of power. But I can tell you authoritatively now that they are groaning in silence now. They are complaining in silence now because, for instance, if Mali were to be operating a 5-year electoral cycle for presidential election, and now election ought to have held. And are you telling me, can anybody say that based on the reality on ground now, where violent attacks by armed groups have multiplied by 430% in the last 5 years, will such government be voted back into power? This is the reality of military administration. They are only concerned about regime protection and not really delivering onto the people.
Indeed. But we also then have to look at the interference of foreign countries, so to speak, the likes of France. So in this last Benin coup, it was said that, France provided logistical support, albeit, Nigeria is the one that sent in the troops, so to speak. Is that a positive thing, or does that just not entrench? Because, again, whilst military leadership is not the preferred, there is a reason why military leaderships, or at least coups, are being celebrated, applauded, if you like, by the vast majority of young West Africans, especially. Remember, they have not lived through a coup, right? They've only known that as they're growing up, it's been the same leaders who have not given them the dividends of democracy. And it's also been the exact same foreign interference. So what impact? We have to unpack that, and I'd like you to unpack that for us. The impact of the foreign interference of the likes of France. Indeed, we could even extend it to the United States and, others, on what is going on in West Africa, but predominantly France, because France is the one that is being rejected by all those countries.
Yes, it is easier to pillory France for everything that happens in the region. And I'm not holding brief for France. I think there's sufficient evidence. And you can't, there's no way we can write off the pain of West African Francophone citizens. That is just the truth, because it's a sentiment that runs wide. Nigeria gained independence in the 1960s, and I think the umbilical cord with the United Kingdom was cut off immediately. That is not the case with Francophone West African and Central African countries. So those things exist for imperialist reasons, which I think it's up to the Francophone people to determine how they want to address that. But I would say something that I believe so strongly that makes this conversation about France's involvement in local politics of Francophone countries not to be a tea party. And the reason is this. You see, at the political level, people can talk about we want to decouple from France, but at cultural level, it is not as easy as it is said, for obvious reasons. If you come to Senegal, where I live now, and you present a Russian visa to France visa to any boy or girl, let's say in his early 20s or teenage, he's probably going to pick France, because why? Why? The country is economically and politically connected to these countries. The strongest linkage is the cultural linkage. They speak French here. They speak French all over the places. How do you want to decouple governance that has been established for almost 50 years by military fiat? Where they tried it, they are suffering for it now. And like I mentioned, I'm not making a case for France, but I think we need to look at this so that people will not think maybe the shortcut to this liberation, so to speak, is military government. No. It's not going to work. It has to be conscious efforts to look for ways in which you probably cut off those dependencies that have existed economically. Look, these countries, their currency is pegged against the euro. Those are some of the issues. In Senegal, where I live, they promised that, they were going to decouple from France, they will not speak French and all those things. Those things are just to win election. The issues are deeper than that because there's a cultural linkage. There are 2-3 generations of people who have studied in France, elite here, both the military and the political class across Francophone countries have properties in France. The businesses that work in Francophone countries are probably French interest. So in other words, if you switch off France in Francophone country, you are going to switch off the economy. You are going to switch off everything that is making things to work. So I'm saying, why the military guys present themselves as a new generation or messiah, when they get into power, that is not what they are doing. In other words, they have only traded dog for monkey. Send France packing, bring in Russia. So it doesn't help the people. And the big picture here is that it's that small elite that is actually preserving themselves, not really preserving the people. Now what they get from Russia is regime protection and the Africa Corps protecting the president, but counter-terrorism, people are being killed in Mopti region, in Segu, Lipta, Koguma, and all these places in Far North, where the capital is being preserved because the military has Russian protection. And is that not what France was also doing for them? For me, really, I think why it is possible to talk about France, I don't think the military oligarchy that are running those countries now are also doing anything different from what their Democrat colleague did. And even in democratically run countries, Senegal, the president promised all those things. How many of those promises has he been able to fulfill? Because a system that was built for over 50 years, you can't decouple it in 2 years.
Thank you. So talk is staying on France then. What then is Nigeria doing with France? Why are we suddenly, I see even you giggle, because why are we suddenly so close to France? Ours is not cultural. Indeed, it's not even linguistic. So what exactly is this relationship all about? And President Macron, who actually put out a tweet to say, you know, he's spoken to President Tinubu, he's going to be supporting Nigeria with terrorism, whatever, I paraphrase right now. And then all of a sudden we're hearing that Nigeria sending, you know, the Air Force in and all of that stuff. Why? What is this closeness with? I mean, some even argue that President Macron is the deputy vice president of Nigeria at this stage. Is he?
Well, I don't think a lot of things remain in the realm of strategic ambiguity, and can only talk based on what we know. But I will start on the note that Nigeria is at liberty of choice by the leaders to decide countries that they want to work with and the extent to which Nigeria want to work with that country. Unfortunately, the situation in which we find ourselves, let's even assume that the new relationship between France and Nigeria is built on mutual respect.
But what mutual respect? What relationship? What I don't understand is, and I think what many of us don't understand, what seeds this relationship?
That's what I'm trying to say, that if we assume that the relationship has no any ulterior motive, we need to know that we are encircled by Francophone countries across board, save for the Atlantic Ocean. So I live in Francophone country, for instance, and I interact with people in Francophone countries. The thinking that runs deep is that, everything that the president of Nigeria is doing now is probably to subvert military rule in those places. Apart from figment of imagination, I don't think we have a codified report, investigative report, or a study that actually proves that really now. And I can't that. But I'm saying this as a Nigerian first, to say, don't say because Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger are loggerhead with France, then Nigeria should not relate with France. Every country pursue its own national interest. Your national interest comes first in everything. So if, for instance, we are battling with terrorism in Nigeria, and France is ready to provide security cooperation that can help us to combat terrorism in Nigeria, we can't turn France back because Mali, Niger don't want us to relate with France. That is a feeling that runs deep, but I think it runs against the logic of international relations. So Nigeria has matured enough to decide on who Nigeria is going to choose as friend, as a nation. And we can't be seen to be inheriting the battle of other countries. I know that imperialism that exists between France and Francophone countries run deep, but that is not the heck on our own pot and for our own stove to fry.
Okay, if I may interrupt you. Yes, indeed. But if I may interrupt you, Dr. Ojewale, is the fact that, yes, of course, your enemy, your friend's enemy shouldn't necessarily, your brother's enemy should necessarily be your enemy, which is what I believe you're saying to us. That's fine.
Yes.
But we can't, France is broke. Everybody knows that. We've seen how many prime ministers have they changed in the last 2 years? Over and over again. There is clearly not just an economic issue. There is a political issue going on in France, right? Now, we can say this is not an altruistic relationship. Indeed, we can argue that it isn't a balanced relationship, and I'll put this to you. Yesterday, the Federal Inland Revenue Services, which is our FRIS, signed an MOU with France's Direction Générale des Finances Publiques. Forgive my French, you speak better French than me. I don't go beyond bonjour normally. DGFIP. And they ended handing one of Europe's most sophisticated tax agencies direct collaboration on Nigeria's digital tax infrastructure. Again, we keep asking, why France? Everybody's asking, Why France? We're not saying President or Nigeria should be an enemy to France. Indeed, we have had Alliance Française here. We've had cultural partnerships with France. But this is a different sort of, it's pivoted. It's a different sort of relationship. It's a relationship on the federal level, which the citizens we're trying to get our heads around.
Yes, there's no altruism in international relations, like you mentioned. And it's important to also say that why there is a lot of noise about France's new relationship, new establishments with Nigeria, China remains the number one trade partner to most countries in Africa. And I believe, based on evidence available, China is even reaping more out of some of the countries in terms of trade, in terms of what they make out of this. I look at an index published by the Cable, I think about less than 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Cable NG. It will surprise you to know that on that data, at least as officially presented, Spain is the highest trade partner in terms of what Spain makes out of trade between Nigeria and Spain last year. Was in excess of, I think, about $3 billion. When I saw it, I was also shocked. So I'm not even sure whether France is in the top 3. So I'm saying this to underscore the fact that I think there is an existing prejudice that exists between French colonies in West Africa, that through modern media propaganda, I'm not making a case for France, but I just have to object.
Of course.
That is being imported into Nigeria, that is seeing France as, we are inheriting the enemy of our neighbor, what France did to... No, let's see, Nigeria has matured to the point that no country can come and rip Nigeria off anyhow now. And I will tell you the reason why everybody is interested in Nigeria. There is Trans-Saharan gas pipeline that is supposed to move from Niger Delta, move to Europe. Because of the fallout of the Russia war in Ukraine, some of those Western European countries are heavily dependent on the gas that comes from Russia. And there's a strategic decoupling from that. And Nigeria has I think maybe we're among the top 3 or even number 1 country with the highest gas deposits in Africa, or at least in our sub-region. So you see that there is a long-term interest beyond France that the entire European Union has in Nigeria. What should be our interest is, how do we position this relationship in such a way that the first and second wave of imperialism that happened in Africa, this will also not go down the drain along that line, in which we produce the oil, we don't get any nothing has really translated to development in it. And then 2, Nigeria, save for the internal contradictions that we have, there's no country in the world that can wish Nigeria away. Provide the largest market because of our population. And then geopolitically in West African sub-region, this is the strongest country. Forget about our internal contradictions. And I even saw predictions that show, although I'm not sure whether Nigeria is working towards that, by 2075, I think Nigeria will be among the top 5 or 6. You must have seen biggest economies in the world.
We hear that.
Anybody that is thinking long term is not going to win Nigeria away. And I will rather situate the larger European interest and France interest in Nigeria in the context of these analyses, not because of peripheral issues with Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. If you put together the economy of Lagos, it surpasses each of those countries. So I think we have a bigger fish to fry than issues of inheriting the animosity that is probably existing between France and those countries. But let me say this, and it's a very important concern. A lot of people are concerned that the president continues to visit France. And I think that is a major issue, particularly when he was the head of ECOWAS.
Exactly.
So that is what I think really colored that perspective among the people, to be seen to be the one that is doing the dirty job for France in the sub-region, where people are entitled to their figment of imagination. It is left for the president to gauge the public mood and then make it clear that he's not doing the dirty job for France. And I can't do that. But I will say now that he's no longer the chair of ECOWAS. He's free to, at least as long as it is in the best interest of Nigeria, to seek international partners that can really help in a balanced relationship, not in the colonial kind of architecture that we had in those days. Okay,
thank you. Let's talk economy. And I'm glad you mentioned the gas pipeline. Indeed, we have to talk about the fact that 9 out of 10 times military regimes or military leadership tend to disrupt the economy. We know what's happening in Niger. Indeed, we hear of, and I say we hear of, things, good, positive steps happening in Burkina Faso. I have not interviewed him, so I don't know. But what I want... Well, okay, so what I will ask you, though, is that you mentioned about the gas pipeline. We have the one to Morocco, and then we have the Trans-Sahara that goes through Niger to Algeria. That plan or that project surely has been hindered by the fact that Nigeria has fallen out with, her brothers and the fact that President Tinubu was not just seen to be doing the bidding for France. He threatened to go in guns a-blazing, borrowing from, that man across the pond. Forgive me, to go in there and, he threatened some sort of intervention. He was talked down from doing that in ECOWAS. Economy is desperately important. The bad governance leads to very low economic growth, which leads to high unemployment. So how then, if we're to get these young people to actually, sort of steer them away from applauding military leadership to democratic leadership, yet with high unemployment, how is that going to be done? What is ECOWAS doing to actually get these unemployment figures? And it's high. I don't have the figures in front of me. It's incredibly high across West Africa. What is ECOWAS doing to bring it down? And what is the state of our Trans-Sahara gas pipeline through Niger and Algeria to Europe? Because we should be earning from that by now, surely.
Well, I think a lot. And I will not claim to have a perfect understanding of everything, but at least I think I can speak superficially, if not like an expert, because we have security, brought energy, infrastructure, and everything together. Now, what is ECOWAS doing? I will tell you, I don't think ECOWAS is doing anything. I largely believe ECOWAS exists with a lot of beautiful protocols on paper, but which they've not been able to really operationalize or implement it.
Can I interrupt you? Why though? Okay. Why is that?
Yes, because we have to look at the capacity of each of these countries, which is uneven. As a matter of fact, if you put all the 15 countries together, in terms of even including the AES states that have pulled out, you can barely talk about maybe 5 countries in ECOWAS that can really do anything. I mean, project significant economic power. Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and maybe one other that I don't know who will fit into that description. I just mentioned Senegal for you. The economy of Lagos is bigger than the economy of Senegal. The economy of Lagos is bigger than the economy of Ghana. So, in other words, you can't even talk about those other countries in AES because I've traveled to Mali, I've worked in Mali, I've flown through Burkina Faso, and I know what I saw on the ground, irrespective of what is flying on social media and all those places. So when we look at the carrying capacity of these countries, I think it's also a function of it also bears testament to the reason why ECOWAS has not been able to really deliver. In fact, I don't have the data, but I'm very sure that Nigeria shoulders the significant economic body in terms of financing ECOWAS. And here's Nigeria that is also bogged down with its own contradictions. So I think that is part of the reasons why ECOWAS has not been able to deliver. But we can't make excuse because 50 years is too long in the lifespan of a person or an entity. So perhaps if ECOWAS by now had delivered a West African highway from Lagos to Dakar by now, that would be commendable. If ECOWAS had delivered a train 50 years after, a regional train that crisscrossed Nigeria and other countries and exit at Senegal, by now those will be significant milestones that we'll be referring to. Because outside these two infrastructure that I mentioned, you can't deliver good governance. So I live in Senegal. Pineapple goes to France before it comes to Senegal. It doesn't make sense 50 years after independence. And it's because there is no infrastructure really. So I just use that limited example to show where I think ECOWAS has fallen. If you can't develop on this high capacity infrastructure, you can't open up the region to economic development. The only thing that we have is that we have a passport that enables us to travel to 15 countries. That's all.
What about after? After AFCTA?
I think largely the experts in that field, they will disagree with me, but every time I have an opportunity to speak about this in media, I speak my mind. And my mind is that it's fine on paper, but poor on delivery because if you don't put infrastructure in place. I can tell you, just let me give an example. I went to Chad to work, and then I was flying from Chad to Yaoundé. Just an example. Regional integration. I was flying from Chad to Yaoundé. 60 years after independence, I needed to fly. So the flight took me to Douala in Cameroon, I flew over Nigeria and Benin. I went to Togo, and then from Togo, I went back to Yaoundé in the evening. The same Yaoundé that I visited in the morning. That is how bad it is. Why? Because I don't even need, if it were to be in Europe, you don't need to fly from N'Djamena to Yaoundé. There should be a train that takes you there in less than 2 hours. So if there is no infrastructure on ground, what is our AFCTA going to leverage on? So that is the reason why, for me, I think it's like putting the cart before the horse, really.
Indeed.
And that, but I've met experts who believe so much in the vision. I also believe, and they say otherwise. But this is the reality of Africa. Regional integration is very, very poor on the ground. It is only good on paper. Now, so that let me talk about the gas pipeline and all those things.
In about a minute, please.
Yes, I think that is going to take years to manifest, really. And the security breakdown is not really helping the matter now. But I do believe that unfortunately, the diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and Nigeria was badly managed during that interventionist posture that was spearheaded by Nigeria. But I also believe that Nigeria has the cultural architecture that it can leverage to really steady that relationship and bring it back, irrespective of form of government that operates in Nigeria. What most people have forgotten they rarely mention, is the fact that two things stopped the military intervention, the purported military intervention in Nigeria. One is the cultural factor, the pushback from northern Nigeria, which I think is sensible. If you go and attack Nigeria, the displaced people there are going to come to Nigeria. So you saw the Emir of Kano going to Nigeria, the Sultan and all those things. Hausa is the common language that is spoken. So people see it like, oh, you want to attack our people, But people must realize that it is that cultural diplomacy that is the number one factor. Because if Nigeria has spearheaded an intervention in Nigeria is the one that is going to foot the bill and still pay the price when the internal displaced people start moving in the direction of Nigeria. And the second factor, which I think is political, is the fact the president is new in the office and the fear of 2027 curtail his tendency to really go ahead and do that. So Nigeria can still leverage that cultural diplomacy.
Right.
And And whatever is not working between Nigeria and Niger now can be worked out because it is the same people, the same language across the border. I don't think that should now stall other developmental agenda and programs like the gas pipeline project because Niger suddenly is at loggerhead with Nigeria in terms of international cooperation.
Thank you very much. You can call. I only have 8 minutes left. 0201-277 0993-0201-465-7190. I will pick up your calls now. Make it short. Hello.
Yeah, good evening, Chisioge. Maduka from Festa.
Go ahead, Maduka. Short, please.
I wanted to put it. I wanted to put it to your guest that France is number one factor why ECOWAS did not work. They manipulated the Francophone countries, and even the eco currency. They frustrated it. France never always see Nigeria in West Africa as a challenger rather than a partner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Interesting. I'll let you respond to that in a moment. Let me just pick up another call. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, Emmanuel. You need to speak up, please. Oh, sorry, your line's cut off. Hello. Hello.
Hello, good evening. This is Wale calling from Ayobo.
Go ahead, Wale, 30 seconds.
I just want to ask your guest. We should have intervened in the Republic. Because if we have intervened in the Republic, what happened in Guinea-Bissau and Benin, what happened?
Okay.
We should stop handing to this Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
Okay.
Why can't we go after them?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So he's saying that we should have intervened in Niger. Had we intervened in Niger, all the other coups would not have happened, and we should stop pandering. I call them the three brothers that have left ECOWAS. Let me answer more calls. Hello, 30 seconds.
Yeah, good evening, Sisi.
Go ahead, Emmanuel, very quickly.
Yeah. Do your guests think that the president is safe? Based on the fact that he seen celebration erupted in Benin Republic, and then the intervention, and then democracy was restored. Even though
no, I need you to 30 seconds. What is your question?
Do you think this kind of coup, will
is it scaring? Is the president afraid? Yes.
We come back again. Do you think kind of coup, other military officials,
Okay.
Because it's obvious that the Beniners, want the 8th France. Thank you. Right, I'm going to give you a minute. You've got 3 there. The lines are going. Do you think this coup could happen again? And could that have been, what prompted our president? As in, happen again in Niger? In Benin. Yeah.
The president of Nigeria and the ECOWAS acted in good faith.
Okay.
Deterrence has been established. Anybody that wants to stage another coup would think twice now because a standby force that is readily available to be activated to quench that.
Okay. Next question was, we need to stop pandering to, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and that we should have intervened. This same intervention that was done now should have happened during Niger, when Niger...
Oh, no. Yes, it will have been a very disastrous outcome for Nigeria to intervene.
Okay.
I'm happy. I stood against it, and I'm happy that intervention didn't take place.
Okay.
Niger offers a very narrow corridor for military operation, and that is the reason why it is easier to carry out these clinical operation that they did Benin rather. Offered a narrow corridor for the present operation that took place.
Okay.
So I think the issues are different.
Okay. The first question I don't remember, but I have a message here.
About France.
Yes, it was about France. Yes. If you can answer that in seconds.
There is that popular paradigm that runs among the people in terms of thinking France is the problem. But I think I hold a different view, and I've expressed that because of this program.
Excellent. I have a message here again to do with France. Good evening, Ireti. Please, your guest should stop calling people's realistic perception about Nigeria being France's stooge, a figment of their imagination. The evidence are all there in the north. in the north, French helicopters are seen in our forest delivering package to people suspected to be bandits. Hope it's not what I'm thinking. That's CY from Satellite Town. You know what, Dr. Ojewale, there is something I want to ask you. I can't believe I'm running out of time. This is not fair. This is not fair. The lines are going. Here's something that I wanted to ask you. Two topics we hadn't talked about. The security aspect with regards to, our neighbors, our brothers, and how we seem to be on our own. And what are we going to do to get them to actually, what ECOWAS needs to bring everybody together so that we can all fight against the same insurgency, because it's pretty much the same insurgency. The other thing is I wanted to talk to you about Faye and Sonko. We see issues, and I predicted this, if I may say so, although I hate to say I told them so. We see issues bubbling under the surface between Faye and Sonko in Senegal, where you're based. What have I got? 1 minute or so? Yes. Over to you.
Okay. Yes, on security, I think we need to do more. And the idea is to invest in this standby force, which was originally designed for counter-terrorism in the Sahel. But unfortunately, the air state pulled out. And where I think we need to strengthen now is to repurpose that for border surveillance, border security, cross-border cooperation that will prevent the free flow of arms and criminals into the littoral state of West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Niger, and Togo. Attacks are fast percolating into those countries if you look at the map. On Faye and Sonko, yes, of course, it is expected, but I think they are projecting that everything is in order. I think if anything is going to unravel, we look towards the election
next election
in the next 3 years or so. And there's the possibility of that unraveling because Sonko still controls the party, while Faye is the head of state. So the person who is a case of a man who controls the structure and a man who holds the power. I think time will prove who is the strongest.
Okay, let me quickly sneak in another call. Hello, we only have 2 minutes. Hello.
Hello, good evening. How are you?
Quickly, I'm very well. 30 seconds.
Okay. This is Barrister Peter Coup calling from Mendy, Maryland.
Go ahead.
Yeah. God bless you. And greetings to your guest. You see, my take on this issue of our relationship with our French-speaking partners, the ECOWAS countries. You see, the founding of ECOWAS was very artificial. Because, yes, don't forget that when ECOWAS was founded, it was actually General Yakubu Gowon. When he was
yes, sir, I need you to hurry up, otherwise they're going to cut you off.
Huh?
I need you to hurry up, sir. You're going to be cut off.
Okay. Well, what I'm saying is that they need to reform the ECOWAS.
Okay.
Because, they need to reform it because the English-speaking and French-speaking, they are different.
Okay.
Policy of assimilation as association are different.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So is that perhaps that's the way? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. The lines are still going. Unfortunately, I can't answer more calls. Otherwise, I shall get in trouble. Dr. Ojewale, is that the way forward? Perhaps it is important. Perhaps ECOWAS needs to be reformed. I don't know what reform that would look, because we're still going to have French and English speakers, Anglophone and Francophone.
Yes, ECOWAS needs to be reformed, and in a nutshell, it is to move ECOWAS from the ECOWAS of head of states to ECOWAS of the people of West Africa. So if they do that, I think there's a lot that can be unpacked in that, but let us just drop it as a soundbite.
Thank you so very, very much. They're already giving me the evil eye. I'm supposed to go off air now. Dr. Ojewale, thank you so much. You've got to come back because I do want to talk more about what's going on in Senegal. And I will report the president of your host country to you, who kept me waiting. They kept me waiting for 3 days and they didn't give me an interview in country. So I should be in touch with you. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for enlightening us. Have a wonderful weekend.
And you too.
God bless
you so much.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.